Hi. So I want to talk about a really light and airy subject today. I want to talk about abandonment. Where to begin? So, abandonment stings. It's painful. And sometimes it's not the fact that the person left that hurts. It's the fact that they were planning it in their head and didn't communicate how they felt. So when something comes to an abrupt end, with no explanation, your feelings are everywhere. You don't know how to feel. And when you're not sure of your feelings, you start to project those feelings onto other people. And it becomes a case of, please don't leave. Are you planning on leaving? Please don't leave. Not everybody's that same person. It's not the same situation. Leave that feeling of abandonment or the trust issue and have people go on their own merits. Go into new relationships with an open mind, a clean slate. Everybody says how much they would love a clean slate when it comes to life. Well, we have the opportunity to give ourselves a clean slate when we go into a new relationship, a new friendship. And it's important to acknowledge what's happened in the past. We can't change what's happened in the past, but we can certainly change how we feel about it over time. And as long as we're communicating with the people that we love, the people that we socialize, say, I'm going to have a hard time with this. It's up to you whether or not you want to continue this friendship, this relationship. But just know that I am dealing with this. I am grieving something that's happened in the past. And if I project feelings onto you and you're not comfortable, as no one would be comfortable with something like that, communicate it with me, please. I will communicate how I feel, and then you communicate and hold me accountable if I offend your feelings. You know, it's sometimes not about us. And it's really odd, and it's really fascinating, actually, because it's not too dissimilar to people dying, so we've got to grieve. They've left, never to be seen again, for as far as you know, but that's part of living in the present, is acknowledging to you they're dead. So you have to grieve. It's painful, so we have to consider how we felt about the relationship. We have to acknowledge how we felt about where it was going, because that's something that we, as people, like to do. We like to plan ahead. So those plans are abruptly stopped. It's like death. The relationship has died. We've got to acknowledge that. Stop. How do I feel up to this point? Okay, this is how I felt up to this point. I can't really communicate this to this person because they've gone. Okay, I need to leave that behind. I need to move forward. I need to acknowledge. This is the most important thing. Acknowledge your feelings. Okay, this is painful right now. This is not something that's going to be dealt with overnight. I need to reflect on this every so often. And then every so often you'd be like, is it still painful? Of course it's still painful. Why is it still painful? Is this having an impact on my current relationships? Oh, am I thinking to myself, oh, please don't leave, please don't leave. Two people I've just met. So it's an element of understanding where this feeling is coming from. So by stopping the situation, stopping the floodgates, that type of thing, where you're continuing the relationship in your head, even though it's come to an end, it's very important that we keep going back to that and be like, okay, so that's the root of that. Or it could even be something further back. So it's important to start these checkpoints of where feelings begin. So it doesn't start spiraling into something where it's just nonsense. I'm not saying that the feelings are nonsense. I'm saying that it can be held back slightly to the point of like, okay, so this is where this feeling emanates from. So when you're going through something like, oh, that's from that. And over time, when you're challenging these feelings and acknowledging these feelings, you're able to be like, oh, that's from that situation. I'm not dealing with that situation at the moment. This is completely different. This is not how I should be feeling about this. Oh, sorry, let me get back to you. It's very case of just communicating with yourself about how you feel, about the situation, acknowledging that the situation has ended, for the time being maybe, I don't know. But it's important that we acknowledge and grieve. And come to the conclusion in our own head of what could have been infinite being finite. It's a part of us. It's a part of us. And it's so painful. Like, even talking about this topic myself triggers me, because I deal with this daily. I don't hold other people accountable for that as much as I used to. I do find it quite often when I'm like, oh, please don't leave, please don't leave. I really enjoy your company, I love you, please don't leave, please don't leave. But that's based on something that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this isn't relevant now. I'm not the same person I was back then. I have grown. And it's time that my emotions mature in the same way. It's a very tricky situation, I'm not gonna lie, and you know, what I've explained isn't necessarily going to be the same for other people. But how I felt and how I dealt with a lot was by acknowledging. A fixed point in time where those emotions became and started, and when I feel those emotions around new situations, new people, new circumstances, I'm like, oh, that feeling comes back from that. That feeling has nothing to do with this situation. It's a bit similar, but it's not the same situation. This situation is not a grieving process. This is not what I'm upset about. This point here is what I'm upset about. It's time to reflect. Do you know what I mean? So it's important to understand your own triggers. And it's so easy for me to sit here and say, but understand. Know thyself. I'm far from perfect. I don't know many people who are perfect. In that light, I think they're perfect. I'm like, oh, you're the best thing since sliced bread. I will tell people that. When I really click with somebody, I will be like, I think you're the best thing since sliced bread. And it's important to acknowledge how you feel about people too. And sometimes it might come across as cringy, but we're not compensating for something that's happened in the past. It's acknowledging. It's like, actually, no, I really like this person. And instead of it going to, please don't leave, I'm so excited for what's to come. Not base it on a past emotion. So when you go oh, I really like this person, stop. And then you go, please don't leave. It's a case of, I really like this person, the rest is unwritten. Do not bring the future. The future has nothing to do with what's happened here. Live in the present. If you find yourself going back, you need to acknowledge these feelings, go back and be like, that happened there, this is not the situation that's happening now. So stop projecting. Yeah. It's difficult. And I keep reiterating this point. I spent 8 minutes just saying it's difficult, I feel. But it's difficult. And it's painful. But the more you deal with it now, the less painful it would be when you're acknowledging these triggers. And then eventually, in a few years, a few decades, who knows, you'd be like, sorry, something just happened years ago and I've just realised, oh, actually, no. And then you can laugh about it. It becomes a static feeling, just like a static memory. It's stopped. So it's a case of like, oh, I'm so sorry, something happened years ago. The trigger is very similar, but let's move past it. It's really that simple. Yeah, communicate and grieve. And leaving things where they are as a fixed point in time. I'll be like, no, I'm feeling like this because this reminds me of what's happened here, but this is not the same situation.